On this Thursday night, more help for Canadians during the COVID crisis. Ottawa extends the CERB and modifies EI.
I think millions of workers are going to be very relieved.
Plus, who's eligible for 3 new benefit programs? Warnings about the We Charity deal. The Liberal minister who thought it was a bad idea. From fighting Russia's government to fighting for his life. The vocal critic of the Kremlin now in a coma. And risking their lives in the quest for better ones.
I have no choice,
The perilous journey for migrants.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Robin Gill.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. There's financial relief tonight for Canadians who've taken a major hit to their earnings over the past few months. The federal government is rolling out a sweeping $37 billion income support plan for workers affected by the pandemic. Among the new measures, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, widely known as the CERB, is being extended. There's a revamped employment insurance system and 3 new benefit programs.
Instead of giving every Canadian a little bit of money when every Canadian doesn't necessarily need it, we are focused with these benefits on Canadian workers in particular, and are able to give them more because of that choice.
But all of this has to get through the House of Commons first. And with Parliament prorogued, that means a confidence vote in September. Our chief political correspondent, David Akin, has been digging into the details. David.
Well, Robin, the CERB has been the workhorse of Ottawa's COVID-19 support plans. More than 8 million Canadians have received at least one CERB check this year, and 4 million are still counting on the CERB benefit.
But the end of CERB is in sight, to be replaced by a revamped employment insurance program. The new EI system will allow recipients to qualify with just 120 hours of work. That's really only 3.5 weeks, any time in the last year. It also includes a minimum benefit of $400 a week. But to get it, you'll have to be available for work and looking for work, just like under the old EI system. But not everyone qualifies for EI, and for those, 3 new benefit programs. First, the Canada Recovery Benefit. That's aimed at the self-employed. It will provide $400 a week for up to 26 weeks, and the self-employed can continue to earn up to $38,000 a year and still get that benefit. For those who earn more than that, the government will start to claw back the benefit, but do it at tax time. The government also wants to make sure that no one goes to work feeling sick, so it will bring in a Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit. This will allow Canadians not covered by an employee or other sick leave program to receive $500 a week for 2 one-week periods over the next year if they feel ill. Finally, there is the Canada Recovery Caregiving Benefit for parents who cannot work because they have to care for young children if schools or daycare centers remain closed. That benefit will pay $500 per week per household for 26 weeks starting September 27th, but if your child's school or daycare opens, you cannot claim this benefit.
Now, there's a lot of fine print to these plans, and applications will open online for these programs in September. But all these new benefits require legislation that has to be approved by the House of Commons. But of course, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau just prorogued or suspended Parliament. So the House will not get a chance to even look at the legislation until late September. And since it's a minority government, these benefits will depend on the Liberals winning a confidence vote in what will be a high-stakes game of political poker. Robin.
David Akin in Ottawa. Thanks, David. For many Canadians, these new benefits will help solve old problems that date back to before the pandemic. With economic recovery front of mind in Ottawa, advocates are calling for the changes to be permanent.
It's sad that it's taken a pandemic and this many people affected to get government to move and do the right thing, but there appears to be a recognition that the time is well past making these changes.
Those 3 new benefit programs announced by the federal government today are expected to cost $22 billion. Turning now to the We Charity controversy and what we're learning after a major government document dump. Thousands of pages of records related to the We deal were released this week, and there's a consistent theme of one government department pushing back. It turns out the Treasury Board, in charge of holding Canada's purse strings, had serious concerns. And Global News can confirm the Liberal minister who heads the agency raised red flags. Abigail Bimman reports.
Among the thousands of pages of released documents, the hundreds from the Treasury Board seem to be the most redacted. But what is clear from what's left on the page, officials raised a number of concerns about the We Charity deal. Among other things, some of those salaries look a little steep, flagged a staffer. Looks like $900 million in grants, $20 million admin, wrote another. That is an awful lot of money, responded the first. On May 4th, the Treasury Board Secretariat notes Employment and Social Development Canada has not provided evidence to suggest that We Charities possess the capacity to undertake this work, especially under accelerated timelines. Furthermore, the tracking of hours by a third party could be challenging and result in potential integrity concerns. Then, May 8th, the day the Prime Minister says he pulled the student grant program from the agenda in a call for more due diligence, a staffer flagged this slide from We. Margaret Trudeau and Sophie Gregoire Trudeau are featured as some of We's celebrity ambassadors. The email simply reads, "Came across this today while preparing for Min Dim." That's a meeting between the minister and deputy minister. And the concerns about handing the $900 million deal to We went right up to the minister. Liberal Jean-Yves Duclos spoke out about red flags. Is the reliance on a third party, We Charities, going to lead to an over-centralized structure? I also queried about the administrative costs. We and We Charities are not particularly well known in Quebec. Looking at their website, I also see not a single word or page in French. The Treasury Board tells us the questions they posed are part of their regular, quote, challenge role. As the student grant proposal evolved, they said so did their advice. But on May 22nd, the Treasury Board was still flagging concerns, including about the program's integrity. And May 22nd is the day the deal was approved by Cabinet. Abigail Bimman, Global News, Ottawa.
It's an anxious time for thousands of people in British Columbia. There are more than 90 fires burning in the province. Today is expected to be a critical day in the wildfire fight. All eyes are on the weather. There's a chance of rain in the Penticton region, the site of the largest fire in BC. But Friday's forecast also calls for high winds and the possibility of a thunderstorm, which could fuel the flames. Aaron MacArthur is on the ground in the Okanagan again for us tonight. Aaron?
Robin, the concern is growing here in the Okanagan Valley. The fire is bigger, and now the wind is starting to pick up. The Christie Mountain wildfire still looming in the hills above Penticton. Overnight, growing to 20 square kilometers.
Since we're moving into the hottest, driest part of the day here, sort of in that mid-afternoon, we do expect to see fire activity pick up.
More than 80 people are on the ground, and helicopters are constantly dropping water on the hotspots, trying to force the fire back in on itself. The primary goal for firefighters on the ground, protecting people's property.
We just need to ask our citizens to be patient. We're going to do everything we can to assist BC Wildfire to get this under control and eventually get them back into their homes.
The evacuation order remains in place for 319 homes, and about 3,700 more are on evacuation alert. People have been told to pack and be ready to leave at a moment's notice. Among those getting ready, Penticton's mayor.
I can understand how all the people feel. And if anything does happen and you lose all your heirlooms and your family history, we have to be very, very careful as to what happens.
The forecast over the next 24 hours is a real problem for people fighting this fire. There is lightning predicted, as well as strong winds with gusts maybe as high as 70 kilometers an hour. That could potentially put thousands more people directly in the path of the fire if it makes a run. Robin?
Aaron MacArthur in BC. Thanks, Aaron. In California, a pilot fighting fires has died after his chopper crashed. The state has more than 360 wildfires. This is what it looked like in Vacaville, west of Sacramento. An inferno tore through that city overnight. It's believed most of the fires were caused by a heat wave combined with unprecedented lightning that produced nearly 11,000 strikes in the past 72 hours. Donald Trump's former advisor has been arrested and is facing several charges. Steve Bannon and 3 others are accused of a fraud scheme to raise money to help build a wall along the southern U.S. border. The online campaign raised more than $25 million. Prosecutors allege Bannon received more than $1 million. Trump says he had no involvement in the project.
I didn't like that project. I thought that was a project that was being done for showboating reasons. I don't know that he was in charge. I didn't know any of the other people either. But it's sad. It's very sad.
Bannon is not the first person associated with Trump's 2016 campaign to be charged. 5 other men, Paul Manafort, Rick Gates, Michael Flynn, Roger Stone, and Michael Cohen, have all faced federal charges. The U.S. president has suffered another major legal setback in his fight to stop the release of his tax returns.
This is just a continuation of the most hideous witch hunt in the history of our country.
The president has been locked in a lengthy battle with Manhattan's top prosecutor, who wants Trump's records as part of an investigation into his business practices. Trump's lawyers have filed an appeal. It's the final night of the Democratic National Convention, and Joe Biden will deliver his acceptance speech as the party's presidential candidate. Jackson Proskow joins us from Wilmington, Delaware. Jackson, what message can we expect from Biden, and what will his tone be?
Well, Robin, tonight is the night where Joe Biden will really lay out his vision, his sense of what his presidency will look like. We expect him to spend time focusing on specifics of things like how he would deal with the pandemic, the economic collapse, and the ongoing reckoning in this country over systemic racism. We do not expect him to spend much time talking about President Donald Trump or really going on the attack. Why would he, when guests over the last 3 nights have done that for him? Last night, former President Barack Obama laid into President Trump, really spoke about the threats to American democracy. So did Kamala Harris in her historic acceptance speech as she solidified her position as the vice presidential nominee. Really what we're expecting from Biden is him to lay out a vision of what people could be voting for, as opposed to simply voting for him as someone who's not Donald Trump. Robin?
Speaking of Donald Trump, he's been trying to provide a counter campaign to this convention, and today he was in Joe Biden's hometown in Pennsylvania. Is his strategy working?
You know, Democrats feel like they've really captured the country's attention during this convention. Despite it being a virtual format, they've been very happy with the ratings for both TV and online. But you're right, the president has been crisscrossing the country all week long, popping up in key battleground states, trying to steal some of the attention. And you're right, he was just down the road from here in Biden's hometown of Scranton, Pennsylvania. Tonight, there are some pro-Trump protesters outside this venue, but we should point out that there is still a level of disarray within the Republican Party. It's less than a week until their convention starts, yet we still don't know who's speaking on what night. There's still no scheduled event or program for that event that is creeping up very quickly. Robin, all we know about the Republican Party convention is that it's likely to feature Donald Trump in a prominent role every single night next week.
Jackson Proskow in Delaware. Thanks, Jackson. There's a new development tonight in the Flint water crisis. The state of Michigan has reached a settlement to pay $600 million to compensate thousands of victims in a community that was mostly black and mostly poor. Flint switched the source for its water system in 2014, but the water was improperly treated, allowing lead and other chemicals from the pipes to leach in. Authorities initially dismissed concerns from residents. They complained about rashes, hair loss, and other health concerns. At least 12 people died. The city was eventually pushed to improve water quality following the international attention. Suspicious circumstances surrounding Russia's opposition leader. Coming up, the Kremlin's fiercest critic is in intensive care tonight. Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny is in a coma. His doctor says he was poisoned just before boarding a flight from Siberia to Moscow. His allies blame the Kremlin. Navalny is among the most fierce critics of Russian President Vladimir Putin. But as Redmond Shannon reports, it's just the latest apparent poisoning of a Putin opponent. And a warning, some viewers may find the video disturbing.
This is Alexei Navalny drinking tea before boarding a flight to Moscow. 2 hours into the flight, the plane makes an emergency landing. Navalny in agony in the toilet before being taken to hospital. Poisoning is being considered, said a hospital doctor. Navalny's own doctor said it was poisoning by an unknown agent. For more than a decade, Navalny has campaigned against corruption. He refers to Vladimir Putin's united Russia as the party of crooks and thieves. He's been jailed and blocked from running for office and suffered a possible poisoning in prison last year. Throughout the Putin era, many of his opponents or enemies have been, or claim to have been, poisoned, dating back to the killing of defector Alexander Litvinenko in 2006. Russian-Canadian activist Pyotr Verzilov spent a month in hospital after a suspected poisoning.
This has been very similar to what I have experienced in the first few hours when a similar thing happened to me.
I have no doubt that this was an intentional poisoning by the Russian secret services against Alexei Navalny. I have no doubt that Putin ordered it.
Anti-corruption activist Bill Browder thinks the timing may be connected to the protests in neighbouring Belarus.
These types of revolutions jump borders, and he's looking at who's the most likely person that would sort of step in to rally the people in Russia, and that's Alexei Navalny.
The Kremlin, meanwhile, is wishing Navalny a speedy recovery. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Still ahead, Canada joins the international community condemning the military coup in Mali. The international community, including Canada, is condemning a coup in Mali. Soldiers forced the country's democratically elected president to resign on Tuesday. The military leaders say they want stability, not power, and they're promising to set up a civilian government and hold new elections. But as Eric Sorensen explains, they haven't said when that will happen.
The new self-declared military leader of Mali, Colonel Assimi Goïta, tried to reassure citizens that daily life and work can now resume. A coup was necessary, say the military mutineers, because the country was in chaos. For months, protesters had called for the president of Mali to resign, accused of corruption, the country in poverty. This week, soldiers detained President Ibrahim Keïta, reportedly at gunpoint. They surrounded his home. In a televised address, Keïta said he was stepping down, adding, "Do I really have a choice?" The coup brought many people back to the streets of the capital, only now in celebration. It's liberation for the people of Mali, says this man. But the reaction outside Mali's borders is deep concern. West African nations have called for a return to civilian rule. The EU fears Islamists will seize on the instability, and from the United Nations, condemnation.
The Secretary General calls for an immediate restoration of constitutional order and rule of law in Mali.
Ottawa has also condemned the military junta. Canada has sent millions in aid to Mali. A peacekeeping mission that ended last year ferried medical evacuations and other assistance with Canadian helicopters. About 15 Canadian Forces members and civilian police remain in Mali. All are reported safe. The Canadian Embassy in Bamako is offering help to Canadians if needed. But where does it leave the international mission that was supposed to support a government, not a military coup?
This is a huge failure. It's even embarrassing for the international community, for the UN, the French, the European Union. It's certainly a very difficult moment for the mission on the ground.
One newspaper called the coup Black Tuesday. Others are content with the change, but only for now. At some point, says this man, the military should return government to civilians. And that's the question. Now that they've seized power, will the military give it up? And when? Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Up next, a migrant talks about his dangerous journey across the English Channel. A tragic discovery on a French beach is fueling calls in the UK to do more to address the migrant crisis. The body of a young man from Sudan was found washed up after he reportedly tried crossing the English Channel. Thousands of asylum seekers have made the same dangerous journey. Crystal Gumansing spoke with one man who took that risk in hope of a new life.
These hands have paid human smugglers, climbed into refrigerated trucks crossing borders, and in June clutched oars in an inflatable raft rowing across the English Channel.
Yeah, me and my friend, we paddling then about 11, 12 hours. Then we lost. Then me and my friend decide maybe we call 999. Then maybe they can find us.
Nader ended up in jail and then a detention center. We've agreed only to use his first name and not show his face because he fears telling his story could damage his chances of being allowed to stay in Britain. He has made his way from Afghanistan through roughly a dozen countries. He says he has been beaten, robbed, shot at, even pushed back out to sea when he got close to Greece.
Every time, is different. Like sometimes it's good, you face the good people. Sometimes you face the bad people.
For many desperate individuals at the camp in France known as the Calais Jungle, the English Channel and its narrowest point of 32 kilometers is worth the risk, and more are attempting it.
The Channel, a pretty dangerous stretch of water in potentially unseaworthy vessels. We want to stop that, working with the French.
A year ago, the UK and France promised migrant crossings in small boats would be an infrequent phenomenon by spring 2020. Roughly 4,000 have crossed so far this year. The United Nations warns stopping these migrants could make people choose even more dangerous routes. The rhetoric softened Wednesday when the body of a 16-year-old Sudanese boy washed up on a beach near Calais. Authorities say his makeshift vessel capsized. Nader says death is always a risk.
I have no choice, It was not easy, but I have no choice.
He's waiting to see if the government will accept his asylum claim. Crystal Gamansing, Global News, London.
And that is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Robin Gill. Tonight, your Canada is Whitecliff Park in West Vancouver, BC. We'd love to see your corner of this country, so please keep sending your photos to viewers at globalnational.com. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night.